Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to video number 5 of the PC-21 build series. We are doing equipment install in this video and wrapping this entire build up. So stay tuned and we will get back to the PC-21. All right, so we're getting to the very lengthy time sometimes for me, the equipment layout. So this is the rear tray, and I'm going to have all the control systems on the rear tray. Just kind of doing a mock layup here, letting it sit till tomorrow so I can keep an eye on it. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I put a lot of thought into this stuff. So we're just going to leave this here. Going to keep an eye on it. We're keeping it in the rear location because all of our wires, it's a nice short length for all of our wires. A bit of a downside is this tray got messed up. So when I went to go cut this, it just didn't work out. So anyways, I got all the paint off, repainted this red, and now we need to let this dry. And so we're waiting on that. Obviously, we've got the cutout there for the starting panel. I think that's big enough, but if not, we'll sand it down as we need to. So that's on pause right now. So what we're going to do in the meantime is maximize our time. We're going to work on all of our wiring harnesses. So this is our light stuff right here coming from each wing. So we've got 6 wires total, so 3 wires and 3 wires, 3 bundles. So that's all the wiring for the lighting system. And then here we've got the wiring for the servos and gears. So I've got all the wires cut out. And the reason we need to plan out all the wires as much as possible is because our access when we put this front tank in is fairly limited. So we can't just run them through here because the tank sits in the way. So anyways, I'm just trying to maximize that and get all of our wing wiring, which is going to come in right there, and then come to the back in this area, and then come up through the main control tray. Our lights, on the other hand, are going to stay in this front section. Our lighting system is going to be on the front tray. All right, so next big step we're going to do is we're going to cut the openings for the exhaust, and all of the first equipment has been mounted. So everything that's on these boards right now is mounted, stuck down, except that. So there's the layout there. We've got our UAT, our pump, our light controller, our central box, brake valve, Cortex, Rex 12. So that's the layout that we're going with. Done some more wiring on the inside as well too. So just got the front gear doors run back. We've got our front gear wire run back. So just some more basic things and kind of getting things more finished. Pulled out the engine. What we did is we took a outline of the exhaust pipes and lined that up with the engine installed, and drew the circle around there, confirmed that it's good. Took the engine out, mounted the top cover on, and now it's time to Dremel out those openings. Now these are going to be tight to the exhaust, so we've got about a centimeter beyond that we will eventually open it up, but we want to make sure that we get those pipes perfectly centered, and then we can open up from that point. The other thing we're going to do is this little inlet right here on the scale aircraft or the full size. This is actually open, so we're going to open that as well too. One more little air input into that area. So nothing major, just a little crescent or piece of a moon type thing. So we're going to open that up, obviously using a vacuum, Dremel, safety glasses, all that kind of stuff. Next shot we'll have those things open. All right, so the holes have been completed. We've taken the top back off, put the engine back in, and now you can see the amount that we need to take out still. So what I do at this point is I take some Sharpie or a Sharpie and add my black mark. So now what we'll do is we'll take the top off, take the engine out, put the top back on, and we will get rid of our Sharpie marks now. I'm going to do a little bit more on this bottom section here. just like that. So take this step slow. This probably isn't our final amount. We're probably going to actually come out about twice the amount here just so we get good airflow out of this area. But this at least gives us a start. We want to try and get this as even as possible. And then from there, we can add our mark where we want to finalize it to. And then here's the other side. This side's a little bit different because that exhaust is so recessed, but we got some down here at the bottom to do, and then a substantial amount kind of all the way around the top. So anyways, we're going to pull all this stuff apart and do some more grinding. All right, so here's the pipes that come with the JetCat engine, the SP10, and here are the pipes that come with the Skymaster kit. So these pipes are nice. I actually like the looks of these ones better than the smooth ones. One of the downsides with the Skymaster pipes, they welded these tabs on in the right spot. These tabs they welded in the wrong spot. They're about 45 degrees off. If we line those tabs up, we'd have that pipe basically pointing up, which would look very funny. So what we're going to do in this case is we are going to use the Skymaster pipes, but we are going to use the screws to mount the pipes. So what we want to do in this case is basically get we can eliminate the tabs, so we're going to cut those off, but I'll show you on this one. So what we want to do is we want to get a mark set up where this is horizontal. So we want to get the pipe in the right position, put a Sharpie mark or something to line this up, and then we can take the engine out and we can mark these holes so that we can get the stainless pipes drilled and use the screws to hold it in place. So anyways, that is the exhaust pipes that we're putting in there. Worked out great. Again, just take your time, and I think now I'm happy with the profile all the way around. We're going to make that gap bigger by about 5 to 7 millimeters, but this is a great starting point. So now what we can do is we can make a nice even line all the way around, and we basically Dremel that down to the profile of the final line. But we can do that as we kind of get into this and get the pipes mounted and stuff and go from there. All right, so one other thing that I didn't touch on before, if you look at these pipes, they're actually different lengths. So this one's shorter, this one's longer. So these pipes are actually designed specifically for this aircraft and the offset and stuff. If you take the shorter pipe, put it in here, it turns too quickly. So anyways, that's the problem with the JetCat pipes, is they are symmetrical, they're equal. So you put one on and it's okay, and then you put the other one on and it's going to blow hot air right on the fuselage, and doesn't actually work. So anyways, you pretty much need to use the Skymaster pipes in this case, and they work out good. So we've got the pipes mounted, drilled holes in the appropriate locations through the Skymaster pipes. Did this just very carefully, got one set up and everything, and then just did the other two. So they're nice and solidly mounted, and we've also got the little wing washers there to prevent those screws from backing out. Can't use Loctite in this case because it's just going to get heated up and come loose. So those wing washers are quite important. So we basically have the engine ready to install. What we need to start doing is working on our lines and running those kind of lines and stuff. But we also want to make sure we open up the engine the rest of the way now and get that all taken care of. So once we get this engine bolted in, it'll be the last time. Now once you get the engine kind of set up with pipes and stuff, everything changes. So you can see there we're almost touching. So this is why it's important to open it up enough to get everything mounted and then go from there. So we've got a nice gap down here, and then it gets tight at the back, and similar scenario when we put the top on. So anyways, that's going to be the next step, is just to work on that opening and get that 100%. Still haven't mounted the flame blanket to the underside of that. I'm going to work on that, I think, now as well. All right, guys, so as far as mounting the heat blanket here, what I've done is I've cut it out, and it's the shape that I want it to be. And what I've done is just taken some silicone, some white kitchen and bath silicone, and ran that nice and tight on the back of the cloth. So the benefit of using silicone is it is extremely heat resistant. You got to remember that the silicone is on the protected side of the cloth as well too. So it's going to work great in this case. It's not a ton of weight as well because we've kept it quite thin. So one of the other options would be to use BVM ceramic paint and get that on there nice and thick, and then lay the cloth into the ceramic paint. That could also work as well too. So, but in this case, we're going to use the silicone trick because it's going to work awesome. So we'll just press that nice and firm into there, check and make sure our position is good, and happy with that. So once that cures, it's going to be, it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, it's going to be a great setup for this type of situation. So anyways, happy with that. And then what we may do is take some of the BVM ceramic paint and just go around the hot section right here, just down to the base and everything, primarily focusing right above the pipes as well too. But the goal here is to have airflow that's going out of the pipes. So anyways, so that is the heat blanket. We'll let that cure. We do have an opening right here that we'll probably cut that open once we're done. This opening right here is still completely wide open, but that front one is right in this area. So, but once this is all cured tomorrow, then we can cut that open. So that's it, guys, for tonight. We will resume this tomorrow. All right, guys. So just I'm going to cover a few things I did last night that I didn't video. So I went ahead and put the ceramic paint over this area. I also made sure I tied it into the flame blanket to kind of glue the edges down, I guess. Started working or thinking about the engine install, tubing, and that kind of stuff. So the engine comes with a couple sections of Teflon tubing, which is high temperature tubing. So I'm going to be running the 2 lines that need to go through the firewall through the through fittings. And couple important things here is, yes, we've got the sliding mounts coming, and not sure when those are going to show up, but we do have them on order. And also just keep in mind that I open this area up around the pipe at a bare minimum just to be able to install the pipe and everything. And I'm glad I did it that way, because when you eye this up, it looks like the pipe's going to be right in the center of this opening. But now when we get the engine in, we're almost touching right here. So we have to open this section up substantially more. So take your time with this and you'll get more success. Also added a couple layers of paint here, more over top of the duct and all that kind of stuff. So that's the stuff we worked on in the engine compartment area. I didn't really do anything more in the center part here other than run 2 servo leads to the lighting controller back to this area for the light and the gear lights. And then I was just planning out the install of the engine with all the piping connections and stuff. So if you go to JetCat's website, and they've got a few different diagrams here, so I've printed these off so we have them on hand in the manual, and it gives an idea of what's going on here. So basically, the way I think about this when I do this is I like to look at it from the fuel pump perspective. So the fuel pump is going to be on the other side of the firewall. So we'll have one of those through fittings is going to be this guy right here. So that comes to the bottom fitting up there. And then we've got the fitting going from the top here, out, through the filter to this side right over here. So that's the actual fuel into the engine. And then you've got this line right there, which is coming down and going to the other fitting right there. Okay, so that's the fuel path. We're going to basically do anything that's going near the hot section of the turbine is going to be Teflon line. So, but that the diagram's fairly important so you know which way is which, because you've got so many different fittings here, right? So last thing I'm going to do now that we've got the pipes mounted on the engine, I'm going to lay the engine in here, do the bolt up so we have an idea exactly where it's sitting, and I'm going to mark out my areas that I want to grind out. And then we'll pull the engine out for hopefully one last time, and then we'll be able to sand these areas out and then hopefully install the engine. All right guys, so as a final step here, we've got this opening nice and round and marked out how much more we want to add. So we've added about 2 millimeters of extra opening on both sides. So I just did this all freehand. There's no special way to do it. I just took the Sharpie and just gently made it happen. So now we're gonna get rid of all that material and we should be good as far as our opening goes. All right, so we are opened up all the way around, and this probably isn't the last time we're going to take the engine out, but it should be pretty close. So at this point, what I like to do is make a list. So over in the manual over there, sometimes I'll do it with tape on the fuselage. I'm just going to start to make a list of things to do, because these are the kind of things that you can forget. So these front engine bolts, I have not Loctited them. We won't Loctite these guys yet either. So that's going to be on the list to Loctite the engine bolts. Now this bolt here, what I did was I took a spare one, put it through. Now what this does is this allows us somewhere to mount tubes and everything too as it comes backwards to keep it off the hot section. You could just zip tie it or whatever to the actual opening here, but this just having this bolt here allows it to support a bit more of the stuff that's going to go across there. So we've got the RPM sensor extended here. Now what I've got is I've got some of this fireproof material for running stuff in. So this is all basically like you can take a heat gun and heat this up and nothing happens to it. So anything that's coming from the front, we're going to run it through this heat resistant material, which includes the line here for the RPM sensor. So we're going to get that run and start to put the plumbing on this thing. So pretty straightforward. We're just going to follow the diagram, and I'll show you guys kind of what we end up with once we're done. All right, and there's a shot of the turboprop installed. Lots going on this thing, as we've talked about, with all the different ins and outs and stuff. I think this is definitely kind of a cool design compared to the other ones that I've seen. So it looks like they've got some integration of the fuel going through this front section, cooling things off or lubricating it or whatever. But anyways, so this is how we've done things. So we've got nice sweeping loops on all the Teflon lines, and they come back to this area. So ultimately, the path goes, our line from our fuel pump is right here. Now there's a connector on the other side of this firewall, so that's where the pump's going to plug into. So that comes to, I think, the top line here, and then it comes out the bottom, goes through the fuel filter into the front of the tank or the turbine, and then we've got this lubricating line here which comes to the bottom fitting right down there. So lots going on. We've got our RPM sensor, wrapped that in spiral wrap here, and then it goes into the heat shielding material, and then we've got our line for our RPM sensor going back through the firewall. So that is the installation of the turboprop. Looks pretty awesome, and gonna just lightly put the bolts in here and then we're good with that so far. All right guys, so I think we have everything installed and ready to go for our tray installation. So one of the things I did was install the servo for the steering. We've routed that wire back down here, and I think I've got all the other wires done. I'm pretty sure I do, so we'll see. Obviously, we can deal with it as we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first install the front tray here. This one has basically all the lighting stuff going through it, and we're not sure yet where the batteries are going to go. So what I'm going to do is get the trays installed and all that kind of stuff, get the wings on, and we'll do a quick check of the center of gravity. The center of gravity is right in the center of the wing tube, which makes it really nice and easy to check this aircraft. So we'll be doing that stuff, but step number one in all this is getting that front tray installed. All right guys, just flipped the plane over because I realized that I needed to run the wires for the lights. One more of those things that found out, thankfully, before we put the front tray in. So anyways, we got the lights glued back into the holder. To glue the holder onto the leg, basically you just get it nice and centered and all that kind of stuff. Then you just run thin CA around the perimeter here and then give it a shot of kicker, and it works out good. So what I did is I wrapped the wires here in spiral wrap, put a zip tie up there, and we've got a nice relief on the wires going into the lights. And then that comes down, we put 2 zip ties here, and we're just going to run the wires. These have been held in place with a drop of CA on the connectors, and then we'll just run this parallel with the steering servo wire. So that should work out good. And while we were down here, we got the leg all set up as well too. So our steering system is all done now as well. All right, so I think now we are finally ready to install that front tray. I had to do the plumbing for the tank, run the plumbing back here to connect to the other tank, installed the vent fitting right there, and that comes out right there. That's the DreamWorks vent fitting there with the cap and the overflow and all that stuff. So that's good. Quickly while we're here, I'm going to talk about the hatch cover here a little bit. Somebody asked, how come I didn't hinge it on the bottom? Well, didn't hinge it on the bottom for a couple reasons. Number one, this works really well. It holds itself open because I ran the pivots here nice and tight. And also, if you put a little bit of a bend in your piano wire here, and I haven't gooped these in place yet, but if you put a little bit of a bend there, when it opens up, it actually holds itself tight. So this works out good, but the primary reason was I didn't want it folding down like this and hitting the JetCat plug-in thing there. So, but it worked out very well. All right, guys, so with that being done, the last thing I did here was hook up the power cable to the JetCat ECU for the turbine, and I just left that cable long, and it's just sitting underneath the main tank there. So really, we can't put any of the battery locations in there until we actually know where the batteries are going. So, all right, so I think the next step here is we're going to put this front tray in, and as we put it in, we're going to feed all the light cables through that hole right by the light controller, and hopefully that works out. All right, so our front tray is now installed. We've got it fastened down. I think we pretty much have everything run through. We've put all of our light leads through here. I've just used a tie wrap or a piece of Velcro and stuck them together. We're not going to worry about plugging them in yet. We've got our line going from our fuel pump to our on-off valve, and then it goes down through the bottom and goes through a couple holders there and then plugs into our fitting on the firewall there. So whole front end section is essentially pretty much done. Obviously we've got a couple things to do here. We've got our fill line and our line that needs to go to our tank. So all right, so we've got the main tray in place. What I did here was just lay it down on its side, and then I fed all the wires through based on where they need to go. So, you know, we've got all these different through fittings in here, and once it's in place, not really great access. So we've got all the different lines and everything run through appropriately where they need to go into the different boards and all that kind of stuff. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make all of our lines up, do servo ends, and get everything plugged into the appropriate location. All right, so we've got all of our wiring done up to this point. There's still a few connections that we haven't put in yet, and the reason for that is basically I don't want to plug the gear doors in and turn this on and have them not sequenced properly. That's the only reason for it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hook up power to this. We're going to check things over and get the front gear kind of working, and that's kind of the first step for me on getting this thing finalized. And once we're done here, we're probably ready to put the wings on and just confirm that everything works with the wings. All right, guys, and you want to make sure that if you're using the Cortex and you haven't done it in a while, or it's your first time or whatever, just refer to the actual big, thick manual that's on their website. This manual has a lot more information, so it's got stuff about serial inputs, jetty connection specifics, all that type of stuff. So just make sure you refer to this to give you the best success. All right, so we've got all the basic kind of stuff done here, and gear's working. I got the nose gear set up and working. So now what we're going to do is we're going to plug the main wings on for the first time, and we will check and see how everything else is working. All right, guys, wings are on for the first time. Looks phenomenal. Oh, hey, look. Not many days better than delivery day at the lighter side of RC. We got 2 massive boxes. All right, so wings are on for the first time. It's time to drop the gear and test that out and see how it goes. And that's going to be the first step after this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start to get into checking the CG, center of gravity, gravity center, whatever you want to call it. But we need to get all the stuff kind of tentatively laid in place before we can do that. Now this is a nice airplane to do because it's right on the wing tube, so all we have to do is put a string around the wing tube, lift it up, and that's going to be a nice simple way to do this. So next thing we're going to do is gear check. All right, so first gear cycle on this aircraft. I just plugged it in and checked the surfaces to confirm that they're good. So now we are going to drop the gear. Front doors open. Gears come down, steering works, gear up, and we're all good. Those high-tech servos that we used on the front nose gear doors, they're pretty noisy, but they do work, so that's good. Thumbs up, the gear works. That's very, very exciting. All right, and there she is on her legs for the first time, looking all beautiful. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of start to get equipment installed. So what I mean by that is the tank, we're going to put that in, going to put the cockpit in, get the front engine hatch on, put the prop on, stuff like that. And the point of all that is so we can lift this plane up and see what we need to do for the CG. So one of the first things I'm going to do here is I'm going to hook up our UAT, get that run so we can fill the UAT with fluid. Need to also get the main tank in as well too. So I have to do a little bit of thinking on that as well because we still kind of want access, but I think we'll be able to deal with that no problem. So, all right guys, and just working on the CG here, we're doing the hanging method from up top. So we've got a rope coming down, we've got the one going around each wing tube. Now the last PC that I built, PC-21, we ended up with the batteries in the back, and it looks like we're going to be in the same kind of situation here. So what I've done is I've just done a mock-up here with 4 batteries and kind of playing around with weight and things like that. What I want to do is I want to get the CG perfect with hopefully a little bit of weight in the nose. So I want to have a couple ounces of lead in the nose so we always have some adjustment room. Obviously we could add some weight in the back as well too, so you know, maybe if we get it close that'll be fine as well, but we will need to recheck this after, because once you do all the wiring and all that kind of stuff, it may add a little bit more weight back here, which is behind the CG point, which is right there. So anyways, just showing you what I'm doing here, just playing around with this, and we're getting pretty close. That's pretty much going to be the battery location there. All right guys, did a couple things here. So number 1, made 2 battery holders, one on that side, one on that side. Also cut my openings for the XT battery holders there. Those are for the XT60 battery plugs. So those guys will be available on my website very soon. We've got 4 different colors, black, or 3 different colors, sorry, black, gray, and red. And then we've got multiple styles as well too. In this case, I used the flush mount ones, which was kind of the best scenario for me for this scenario. We've also got some top or plate mounted ones as well too. So look for those on the website soon, lightersideofrc.com. But now we've got our battery area solved and dealt with. We'll just be holding the batteries in place with Velcro straps. We'll have our receiver batteries on one side, our turbine and gear battery, light battery on the other side. All right guys, we are in our home stretch for the install here. So we've got both of our battery packs sorted out here. So we've got 2 2-cell 2200 milliamp LiPos that are going to power the electronics. And then we've got a 2200 milliamp 3-cell that's going to power the turboprop, and then another of the
2200 milliamp 2 cells, and that's going to power the landing gear and the light system. So we've got all of our battery areas, as I showed you previously, installed, painted them last night as well. So now we can get those installed and completed. We've also got things like our remote on-off switch, which is the switch that makes this airplane turn onable. I don't know if that's a word, from the receiver transmitter. And then we've also got our 900 backup, which we're going to install the receiver on the top of the air tank there, and the antennas are going to be in the back of the aircraft. So that is pretty much the rear portion that we need to do. And then once we've got power and everything, we can start to plug in the light system, and that's going to be kind of the final step in the whole install process. And then we can start working on the engine run up. All right, guys, so batteries are all set up and installed, nice and solid. So we've got a piece of Velcro in between the inside battery and the tray, and then we've got 2 Velcro straps. That works out awesome. Love it. I think it's great. And what I've done here is put the batteries in the plug-in order. So we're also going to mark these things as well too. So we've got our gear battery, which goes here. We've got our turbine battery, which goes there. The EC or the receiver batteries, doesn't matter, but that's the layout. So next thing we're going to do is get the 900 megahertz receiver run. So we need to run a wire from this location to the receiver. So that's one thing we've got to fish through, but we'll get that thing mounted as well. All right, guys, we're getting ready to run this aircraft up. Now, we have not added any additional weight to this thing. I just put the pylon or the drop tanks on, and I'll just show you the final CG here. And it looks really good. So it's just a little bit pretty neutral. I'm probably going to add a little bit of nose weight just to have that cushion in the nose, which is exactly what I was going for. And that's pretty much perfect. Okay, so drop tanks have not been fastened or anything. I just placed them up in place. We're going to take those things off, and I think we're ready to run this thing. So we're going to add some more fuel into the fuel system. We're going to get our telemetry set up on the Jetty radio and add the JetCat stuff in there. I'll show you guys before we run it what we do. And we're really close to firing this baby up. All right, and we are ready to fire up the PC-21. We've enlisted beautiful wife who's getting warmed up and dressed up. We've got our safety stuff on. I'll be honest with you, I'm probably yelling right now, but I'll be honest with you, these turboprops kind of scare me because the big prop. So we've got a winter wonderland outside, so it's a little bit chilly right now. I don't think we're going to end up going to full throttle on this thing. We'll see what happens, but we'll see. All right, start up, fuel's on. Antenna 1, 9. Antenna 2, 9. Huh?
So empty in there.
Yeah.
Receiver voltage 7.61 volts. Antenna 1, 9. Antenna 2, 9.
a lot of pull? No? All right, so that was run number 1 on this engine for us. Everything looked like it was going well. No issues or anything on the radio. It performed well. We did go to full throttle. So a couple important things here. The RPM of the prop, we got up to about 4,300 to 4,400 at full throttle. So I'm not sure what that kind of relates to, if this prop is too much, but this is the prop that people are using on this engine. I did leave the screws here on the front part of the engine loose for this run up, just because we're waiting for the JetCat slides still. And that's it. Obviously the cover was off, everything else was off, because we wanted a visual look at everything. So went well. Okay guys, so we're just getting ready to put the aircraft on the stand and complete our final little things here. So a couple things happening is we're reaching out to Skymaster to find out if that wobble in that nose cone is normal. It's carbon. I don't know if you could see it during the video, but it's got a pretty substantial wobble, maybe about 1/4 of an inch or so at the very tip. So because it's carbon, it weighs nothing, so I don't know. Anyways, so we're going to get the aircraft back on the stand. Then what we're going to do, actually before we do that, I think we're going to pump up the struts and get that dealt with so we can have it on the ground and see how it sits. But then once we do that, we're going to get it back on the stand, and we're going to wrap up our light hookup and our cockpit plug-in when we put the pilots in. So what we're looking for when we pump the struts up. So it's a little deceiving on the PC aircraft. I'll try and show you as best as possible, but basically right now it's actually sitting tail low. It should be up something like this, so that the main struts need some air added to them, so we need to do that. We need to add some to the front. We need to add some to the tires as well too, so just getting the aircraft in the right attitude is important. So we're going to get that done. All right guys, we've got the lights hooked up here, so we've got our rear blinker, side, the leading edge light there on the right wing. They're actually quite bright, quite impressive. We've got our landing lights, so those are 2 of them. And then the white lights there. So looks good, nice setup. Additionally, we've got our main power switch here for the lights, so if we just turn that off, no more power. All right guys, so a couple final closing remarks here on the build. First of all, with our results yesterday of only 4,400 RPM on the prop, basically this is too much prop for our setup. Yes, we should get more RPM than 4,400. Yes, the airplane or the prop and everything will unload a little bit in the air, but I think 4,400 is just too low. I'm not satisfied with that. And during the test run, it didn't feel like it had tons of power. It was a little bit doggy, and we definitely don't want to get this thing up in the air and be fighting for power. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a vario prop for this aircraft. The other turboprops that we've had in the area, the Vario is just such a good option, so we're reaching out to them to get one of those. Obviously, the nice thing about the Vario prop is you can adjust the pitch on it, so we may go a little bit smaller if we can, if that's an option, like a 22 instead of a 24, and then of course you'll have a wide range of pitch adjustment as well too. So that's kind of the plan for this aircraft. Regarding the nose cone being a little bit wobbly, we got a response back from Skymaster today that they're fine with it and run the aircraft the way it is, so we will. Lots of other people apparently are as well too. It's normal is what they're saying. And the prop itself, this thing is for sale now. If you guys are interested in this prop, reach out to me by email, thelightersideofrc@gmail.com. It does have, most of the tips are good. There's a couple little wear marks there, probably from being in the box, right there. Right there, and there's a little wear mark right there. So anyways, you guys know it's a brand new prop, and we've got the box for it to ship into. So reach out to me if you're interested in that. The owner is interested in selling it. Last thing we're going to do here before we finish this build is the cockpit setup. So we're doing a couple things for that. Basically, we've got a randomizer from the RC Geek. This is a cool little device. So you have one input coming in, so it can just be a powered input from the CB box. Two outputs here, and then of course they're adjustable as well too. So it's a pretty unique little setup. So all we do in this case is we have the two leads here going into the randomizer, and then we've got these two leads which are going to hook up to the cockpit pilots. Now this is a power box servo plug-in thing using an MPX connector, so it's going to be a nice and simple way to connect the cockpit to the aircraft. Ideally, I would like to have just a plug-in that you didn't even think about, so when you put the cockpit in, it just plugs in. The problem with this plane is, like we've already talked about previously, the canopy kind of goes in and then backwards. It doesn't just slide in one direction, so that makes it tough to be able to do that. I'll show you where we're putting this plug and we'll wrap things up. All right, so we've got our two plugs from the pilots coming through here. Again, we're just gonna hook these two wires up to it and have them kind of fastened or taped into the cockpit. So this wire is going to be hanging down. And then we've got the other end of that MPX connector right down there. And that's the nice thing about that through fitting is we can just glue that into the through fitting, and that's going to be the plug-in for the pilot. So when you go to put the cockpit back in, plug the MPX connector in. We've got lots of wire lead there, and super simple, no servo leads to deal with, and just a real simple way to plug that thing in. But otherwise, we are complete. Nice looking aircraft. I love the red trays. I think it's a nice clean install, and thank you. Those XT60 connectors will be available on the website soon. All right, guys, and that's everything for the build of the Skymaster PC-21. Thank you so much for hopping on with me during this journey. If you've watched the whole series, good on you. It turned out awesome. I don't know if we're going to be able to maiden this aircraft this year. We've already got a bit of snow on the ground. It's supposed to warm up next week, but the prop issue is the big one. We need a prop that is going to be a little bit higher RPM. So anyways, probably a next spring type of thing, which is a bit of a disappointment, but that's okay. Thanks guys for watching. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below if you're not a subscriber. Love seeing new subscribers to the channel. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see ya in the next video.